So InfraGard's a nonprofit organization that's partnered with the FBI. Its overarching goals are to protect critical infrastructure. So the way they do that is they partner with the private sector, which owns most of, if not almost all, of our infrastructure here in the United States. It's divided into 16 sectors as defined by the Department of Homeland Security, and it includes a ton of stuff. The energy sector, IT sector is obviously a really big one, the finance, and a whole slew of others to include, I think nuclear is a sector, and they may split them out at some point, even more than that. But the idea being that if we work together, because the government, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, we don't own the infrastructure, and so we don't necessarily see all of the things that are going on. And so through this partnership between the FBI and all of our private sector partners, the goal is to be more well prepared for our adversaries. As I mentioned, it's a nonprofit. It is free to join. It's really best suited for those that are in those positions, in those key security positions in their organizations. But as was mentioned, the cyber and IT sector now is touching almost everyone. And as a part of that, if you go through the registration process to be an InfraGard member, you have to get, it's a very small and painless background check by the FBI to become a member. But that does get you access to this cyber intelligence, along with a lot of other things that may be of particular interest to your business. So I encourage you to check it out at infragard.org. You're welcome to register on there on the website and apply and become a member. Most of our meetings happen in Sacramento. Many of them happen in the Rancho Cordova area, and they vary. Our last meeting, we had an excellent speaker who talked about Mideast politics and Saudi Arabia and the recent regime change. So the ISIL threat, we also have great speakers come in and talk about cyber things. We had a great speak about the current drought in California. One of the drought managers for the state came in and gave us a great, well, it wasn't great, it was bad. But it was a great presentation. So we cover a whole gambit of things. So I'll stop with InfraGard and we'll jump into what I do with the FBI then. So I'm a cyber agent. And what that means is I work in Sacramento at the FBI office on the cyber squad, and we do hacking, or more broadly, unauthorized access of a protected computer system. That's all defined in the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act if you want to go read it. But basically it means that we do hackers. Recently they've even narrowed our focus in the FBI. We used to work a number of other violations under the cyber division. We used to work matters of child pornography, intellectual property rights, even some of the more larger internet fraud schemes. But a few years ago, they decided, look, we really need to focus on hacking because it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. So the cyber division, that's what you're going to do. So we work basically two different types of hacking. We work criminal hacking, national security hacking, okay? National security hacking, that's espionage, terrorism. Criminal, it's hacktivism, financially motivated criminals, your insiders, so that's your employee who decides to quit and decides to delete all of the server or steal intellectual property. In that case, we would work that particular case because they had unauthorized access to that protected computer system. So we do a lot of different things. Many of them touch small businesses. Small businesses are definitely a target. There's one thing I want you all to know today is that it's not just big companies that get hit, it's small businesses that get hit. All of the larger corporations are hardening their defenses. They have the capital to invest, to protect themselves. And so, as was mentioned before, criminals will go for the low-hanging fruit. In the last month, I've been out and I've spoken with a couple of different businesses that had, computer intrusions essentially. In both cases, the small business, one business had about a 3-man IT staff, and we asked them about a certain computer on a certain IP address, and they said, well, we're not really sure what that does. It was here since before me. And it was written by a guy who doesn't work here anymore. And I don't know if anybody uses it anymore. Okay, so then I went to the other business, and didn't really have an IT staff. Real small, had a lady in the office who was really good with computers, and she pretty much ran things. And similar situation where they had a custom program written by, I think, a student at Davis, or at a time that was for a specific business need of theirs. But it had been running for years. Maybe one user on occasion used the application. In both cases, these applications that were for internal use were external facing, which basically means that anyone in the world could access them. Unfortunately, they were using an extremely outdated version of something called Cold Fusion. It's just an Adobe product that people use to build websites. And so they got compromised. And so what happens a lot of times is, during the course of our investigations, business gets hacked into, something bad happens, we get some forensic evidence, and say, okay, well, it came from this IP address. So we go to that IP address to catch the bad guy, right? No. Because the bad guy actually is using some other person's computer in some other state, or hopefully state, not some other country, to conduct that attack, to hide themselves. And it's what's known as a proxy. Okay, there's lots of other names for it, but basically that's what it means. So I'm going to pretend to be someone else to go do my bad activity so that you can't catch me. There's lots of ways to hide your activity. The Tor network is another one. Stands for the onion router. VPN access. There's lots and lots of ways to hide where you are coming from, which makes investigating cybercrimes very difficult. I don't want to go on too long because I really want to get to your questions, but the one thing I do want to leave you guys with is this: if you do anything today when you leave, change your email password so that it's not the same password that you use for anything else. And this is why. Your email is how you identify yourself on the internet, essentially, as of today. If you forget a password at almost any site, you can go through a password reset process that requires what? An email to be sent to you. And if I'm a bad guy and I have control of your email account, then I can go and reset your bank password. I can go and reset your Amazon account and have things shipped to wherever I want. So losing control of your email account is very detrimental to your personal cybersecurity, because it's really hard to get access to it again. Okay, because you're gonna have to contact the vendor if it's not yours. For example, one of the large ones, Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, and prove who you are. Usually by some notarized documents and
try to get them on the phone.
And try to get someone on the phone. It's very, very, very hard. And during that interim, people can do all kinds of things. There was a guy, a reporter, a couple years ago who they were able to get a hold of his email account, and then they took over his Apple account when they were able to wipe his phone, wipe his laptop. And it's a hacker did this basically just to prove a point. So if you do anything, change that password, make it unique. To go one step farther, add two-factor authentication. That's what I use. Basically that means that there's some other factor. It could be some sort of a token, a text message to your phone. Some banks use different applications to receive secure tokens, things like that. But so if one person has your password, they still don't have that second factor that will allow them to get access to your email account or any of your financial accounts. And I will just want, real quick, small businesses are getting hit, especially right now with this, we call it man in the email. It's basically, what it means is the CEO of the company, president, whatever you want to, the leader is out of town, vacation, business, and somehow the bad guys know this. They also know who controls the money in the business and who can wire funds. And what they'll do is they'll spoof an email from an email address that looks very similar to your own. And they'll say, hey, I just closed a business deal. Please wire $22,000, $200,000. It's really amazing how they can actually figure out what's a normal amount that isn't going to freak people out. Because we've seen some really large amounts wired with no confirmation. It's just whoever the CFO or controller is, they log into the bank and they wire it, and that money's gone. And the bank,
the bank is not going to cover you on that. The small business eats that. The corporation eats that. And then that money, a lot of times that money ends up in Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, China, Malaysia. It's a well-known fraud. The money gets laundered out of the country using money bills. But make sure, for whatever wire transfers you do, money transfers in general, that you don't use email because it's not secure. It's very easy. And I'll tell one quick story about that, which is I heard about an account the other day where they actually spoofed, they created a domain name, very similar to the company's domain name. They actually then sent emails back and forth between the CEO and CFO so that it appeared they're having a discussion. There's a whole email thread about this business deal. And then they just forward the email thread to the person who actually had the ability to send the money. So that it's not just like this one email, it's a whole chain that appears to be from two people you know discussing a business deal so that it's going to be convincing enough that you're just going to go ahead and wire that money. So that's the real thing that we're seeing right now is affecting small businesses. I could talk for a long time, but let's get to some questions.